and it been revealed, now you say you believe me. I was genuine as hell and you ain't won't believe me. I was genuine as hell and you ain't won't believe me. I was genuine as hell and you ain't won't believe me. I was genuine as hell and you ain't won't believe me. Sometimes I wish I wasn't famous. Praises go to my creator. Gangster don't do no complaining. Remember nights when I was hunger painting. Sometimes I fast just to let the maker know I'm thankful. In the hellfire, everything below the ankle. Blow a bed and let my grandmother know I made it. Pain I feel, crying tears, it ain't no replacement. When your spirit comfort me and say, so amazing. Stick your chest out, lift your chin up, forever I've been with you. Beautiful and you don't look like Apple, what you been through. Pressure on my shoulders, still I'm staying focused. Dealing with a lot, it ain't too difficult to know.
Our political editor, Craig Patrick, is joining us now to explain what's at stake and what this all means. Craig.
Well, hi there, Kelly. In terms of what is at stake, it's going to be North Florida's ecosystem. It'll be much of the state's seafood industry and millions of state tax dollars affecting ultimately all of us. In terms of what it means, well, it means that Florida's decades-long water war with Georgia is nearly over now, and it looks as if Florida is on the brink of a costly defeat. Florida's government claims the growing population of Georgia is sucking much of the water out of our river systems before it reaches North Florida's Apalachicola Bay.
These boys, their daddies and their granddaddies and their great-granddaddies, they made their living in this bay.
This was once the primary source of Florida's oyster industry, at one point producing 90% of the state's supply. But as the flow of fresh water from Georgia is drying up, salt water from the Gulf is flooding into the Apalachicola Bay. And their fishermen and state experts say the change in salinity is altering the food web, and that's wiping out the oysters. The feds declared the natural fisheries there a disaster, and just before Christmas, the state banned oyster harvesting in the Apalachicola Bay for 5 years in an effort to try to save it. Now Florida is taking one last swing at trying to force Georgia to cut back on its water use in the U.S. Supreme Court. Florida has already lost round after round in court, but the Supreme Court gave Florida one more chance. On Monday, the justices heard arguments for an hour, but based on the justices' questions and comments, it did not appear to go particularly well for Florida. Georgia claimed Florida's oyster losses are due to overharvesting and its own mismanagement. Chief Justice Roberts pressed the point that while Georgia may have contributed to Florida's losses, it may not be the only cause, again citing evidence that drought and overharvesting may also have been contributors. Justice Breyer, who had been a swing vote in giving Florida another round in court, questioned Florida's evidence. And he and Justice Alito cited conflicting evidence, as the justices appeared to be skeptical of Florida's case in this final round of the water war with Georgia. All that doesn't bode well for Florida, that's for sure. Having said that, we know that justices often play devil's advocate. The questions and the tone they take in arguments don't always reflect the way they vote in the end. We'll find out a little later this year, Kelly. We're expecting a decision by June.
Really ask yourself, who owns and controls the water? When you have a corporation that moves to your city, you know what they need? A lot of water. When you have a large population expansion, you know what they need? A lot of water. You know what everyday people need is water. So how are you preparing yourself while also asking the questions to what to do in a water crisis? You see how they're using climate change as the pivot. Without water, there's no food, there's no life.
Discuss a realistic picture of what climate catastrophe looks like. There are 4 main things that climate catastrophe will do to humans and affect your life. Obviously, sea level rise. Places that are already hot will become unlivably hot. Weather patterns will change such that there will be more water in some places and less water in others. Finally, significant global ecosystem collapse. First off, ocean level rise. The oceans can actually rise regardless of the North Pole and South Pole melting. When things get hot, they expand. And so when the ocean gets hot, it expands and sea levels will just rise even without adding more water. A massive portion of the world's population lives at sea level. Throughout most of human history, living at sea level has been great because of maritime trade. There are 2 outcomes that'll happen. Mass migration, as humans need to leave their homes and go elsewhere. And some places like New York City can build seawalls, which are incredibly expensive and difficult to build, can protect certain areas from sea level rise, like the entire country of the Netherlands. Alright, places that become unlivably hot. Humans can survive pretty much any temperature on Earth as long as they have access to water through evaporative cooling. You mist yourself with water, you will cool down, you will sweat, you will feel better, you can survive. Water plus shade. Evaporative cooling does not work with extreme humidity. There's a pretty low threshold for which humans can die of extreme humidity, and it's like 90 degrees. Either A, you need air conditioning and to stay inside, or B, you die. You cannot cool yourself down by being hydrated and sweat because your sweat will not evaporate, and that's it. This will affect southeastern United States, tropical Asia, among other places. Once again, cause mass migration. Global weather patterns changing. Human civilization is currently built around expected water rainfall every year. Climate change will cause global storm patterns to change. We're already seeing that, where the western United States is not getting enough water anymore and the eastern United States is being destroyed by hurricanes. As this exacerbates, it'll cause more and more places to have extreme drought and run out of water compared to the number of people who currently live there. This can be solved by water pipelines or desalination plants, but that won't be used everywhere and will also cause mass migrations. Global ecosystem collapse. There have been 5 mass extinction events in our planet's history. We are in the 6th. Humans have been killing the world species for a long time, overhunting and putting our cities on their ecosystem. Remember how I was saying all of those other parts of climate change would cause mass migration? Animals can't do that, so they'll just die. Not all of them, but probably most of the world's species will not be able to adapt in time and will die. I don't know how that's going to affect the global food chain and our ability to survive on the Earth, but it certainly won't be good. No matter where you are on Earth, climate change is going to affect you because climate change will cause mass migration. From the places people cannot live anymore to the places where people still can. You know what humans hate? Immigrants.
A little bit about water and what we've been told and what we've been taught, but what's the actual truth. Now, first and foremost, we have 53,000 man-made lakes in the United States. Now, this is important to know. They're basically holding tanks. They put a lot of dams and they put up a lot of blockages, which have basically disabled the rivers from flowing perfectly and creating all that free energy that comes with water, because you could actually use water for free energy. Secondly, the other part about that is that we're never actually running out. Now, why is this important? Because when you go to the primarywaterinstitute.org, you can look up this website and you can learn about how we are actually never running out of water. Now, this is an interesting fact as well, too, that says that geologists have discovered 5 times the amount of water underground in compared to all the oceans. Now, think about how much water that is. If there's oceans just filled with water and we have 5 times that underneath it, that pretty much destroys all of the stuff in which we've been taught, that water supposedly comes down from the air and that's the only way in which we can have water, but there's actually water below us. This is why when mining was going on back in the 1950s with the Tombstone mine and a whole bunch of different mines, when they started going into these mines, they were basically flooded with so much water they didn't know what to do. And Stephen Reese and Paul Power were basically people who were put onto the scene to go find out why so much water was coming down into the mines that they could not mine. Now, you can look all this stuff up at the primarywaterinstitute.org so that you can learn that we are never running out of water.
I don't know why I was disconnected. Bear with me, bear with me. So as I stated in the last live, China is going through a heat wave. They're also having issues with growing crops. They're having lakes and rivers dry up. So I don't want you guys to just believe me. I want you guys to take a look for yourself.
The country to reel under the effects of a drought. It is experiencing its worst heat wave on record. In fact, temperature records have been broken in several cities. China's National Climate Center predicting the high temperatures will last until the 26th of August. Asia's largest river, the Yangtze, is drying up. Water levels at the Three Gorges Dam at 40% lower than for the same period over the last 4 years. However, it will be releasing 500 million cubic meters of water over the next 10 days to boost water supplies downstream. Local Chinese media reporting that over 11,000 people are having trouble accessing drinking water and that over 141,000 hectares of crops damaged due to the water shortage. China is the world's largest producer of rice, wheat and potatoes. Both drought and the floods affecting food production across the country as the world struggles with a grain shortage due to the Russia-Ukraine war. China's water shortage is affecting its economy in multiple ways. The Yangtze River Basin
Age of Aquarius.
1/3 of China's GDP. Shanghai, China's economic powerhouse, also lies along the Yangtze.
Now let me pause this. So I find that interesting that we're having issues with water not only in China but in the U.S. And Kamala Harris, the vice president supposedly of the U.S., stated last year that we're going to have wars not over oil but over water. This is what Kamala Harris, out of her own mouth, stated, that we're going to have water wars, similar to, if you've seen the movie Mad Max. That kind of gives me that type of idea of a water war, where, you know what I'm saying, there's a scarcity of clean water. That's the new goal, exactly, especially in the age of Aquarius. But back to this drought. So my perspective is, I feel like that some places in the world are not receiving natural sunlight. I feel like there's 2 suns, maybe more, but I feel like one is actually sending off artificial light via the sun that was launched in China as of last year. Please go do the research and look at the artificial sun that was launched in China last year that was never taken down. They didn't show any video of the sun coming down. Only the sun was being launched up into the atmosphere at night. So I feel like that has some effects to this drought, to this heat that is taking place. We do know in California that a lot of those forest fires were not because of climate change. It was because of direct energy weapons. And this has been documented. You know, you can't melt steel. I've never seen the sun melt steel the way a lot of those cars and, you know, things were being melted in California. So please do your research. I just wanted to share that quick note. China is having some issues, and if you haven't noticed by now, whatever goes on in China, eventually it trickles down to here, or we do get some of the debris of what takes place. So please do your research.
You know, I'm in a lot of meetings on foreign policy. You know, for years and generations, wars have been fought over oil. In a short matter of time, they will be fought over water.
The economy has been growing steadily for over a century, creating prosperity and security. But everything has its limits.
We need chips, we need energy, we need food, but we're going to need it for centuries and centuries and millennia, and for as long as humans are around.
And all of these things need water.
The days when we had abundant water supplies are gone too.
In many regions of the world, water has run out.
No water at all, not a drop.
The economy versus humanity versus nature.
We have a right to clean water.
Globally, 70% of water goes to irrigation.
Look, you need water to make food. Agriculture uses a hell of a lot of water.
Water will be the new gold.
They are not matching the reality of the disappearing water with their desire for economic growth.
We've always known water to be plentiful. But that's changing because of the climate crisis. With water becoming scarce, this series asks, what happens if we have no more water? For years, the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research has been warning about the effect of the climate crisis on the water supply.
My phone falls when I let it go. I don't need to do an experiment. I already know what will happen. It's simple because we understand physics. If we increase CO2 in the atmosphere, then we will warm the planet. And a warmer planet means more water vapor, more drought, more periods of intense precipitation. We don't have to do an experiment to know water availability is decreasing.
As it gets even warmer, we will need even more water for agriculture, to drink, and for industry.
We can see this very clearly with Tesla, which needs a relatively large amount of water locally. And of course, this has to be balanced with nature, because what we do now will have a lasting effect.
For its gigafactory in Brandenburg, outside of Berlin, Tesla wants access to especially valuable groundwater reserves.
Critics say that Tesla is stealing water from the region here.
This region has so much water. Look around you.
But the local water supply says there's no more water for further development stages.
No, this is completely wrong. It's like water everywhere here. Does this seem like a desert to you?
Okay, danke schön.
That's ridiculous.
Tesla's application hasn't yet been approved. But it's just one example of many. German industry now seems to be waking up to the increasing scarcity of water too.
Natürlich haben die Trockenjahre in 2018, 2019.
The dry years in 2018, 2019, 2020 also showed companies how important water is. And now there is a big rush for permits. And we must really be aware of the true water supply now, so that we don't sell it off.
Water is a sought-after commodity. And the chairman of the Federal Working Group on Water, Professor Martin Grambo, wants authorities to use restraint when allocating water rights.
We have a lot of big offers. With the global water shortage, the biggest water companies in the world are knocking on our door. Big names that everyone knows. They all want to get water from us because the quality is simply excellent.
Coca-Cola is planning a controversial project to extract water in Lüneburg. Germany's largest beverage company has been bottling its VO brand water in the northern German town for years.
We already have approval to draw 350,000 cubic meters from the aquifer, which is the same amount we put in the application for a third well, to double the amount of water we're taking.
Coca-Cola's quest for water leads to Rettenstedt, just outside, drilling a well 190 meters deep into the earth here, putting the mayor in a dilemma.
Die Frage ist halt nur, wie verkaufen wir auch, oder was heißt verkaufen, wie vermitteln wir das den Bürgerinnen und Bürgern?
The question is simply, how do we sell it? Or rather, how do we communicate to citizens that the groundwater that is actually there to ensure their supply of public drinking water is partially being given to the beverage industry? And then we have to tell citizens what they get in return.
Bürger dann auch vermitteln, was haben sie davon?
Resistance is stirring in the region of Lüneburg. More and more people are protesting against Coca-Cola. More than 1,000 people recently took part in a demonstration organized by Our Water Lüneburg. The initiative fears their water is being sold off.
Dear Lüneburgers, my name is Marianne Temmersfeld and I am also a member of Our Water Lüneburg. I want to stop this well. I want to prevent Coca-Cola from taking any more. And they will say, okay, then we can't produce any more VO.
Dr. Marianne Temmersfeld has been involved in the Citizens Initiative since the beginning of 2020. Local politician Jens Buta issues water extraction permits, even Coca-Cola's. His decision will last for decades.
Letztendlich entscheidend dafür, ob eine Entnahme.
The groundwater authorities in Lüneburg first determine whether extraction is possible, and then we make a decision. That can also mean that we have to make a decision that the town doesn't like.
Die der Gemeinde nicht genehm ist.
Water rights are up to local administrators, but the state of Lower Saxony, where Lüneburg is located, is also dealing with this issue.
Niedersachsen ist ganz vielfältig.
Lower Saxony is quite diverse. We have regions where there is a lot of water, but in a big area like Lower Saxony, there are also regions like the northeast of our state that have less groundwater. Since there is so little rain, there is more demand, for example, because farmers have to irrigate their land.
The effects of the warm, dry years can no longer be downplayed. The consequences can be seen everywhere, and it's especially severe in the region around Lüneburg.
Dieser Teich ist ja sonst viel voller.
This pond is usually much fuller. Sadly, the water level is very low.
Uns geht es grundsätzlich das Erbe.
Basically, we're worried about the legacy we're leaving to the next generations, the generations that follow. Water is the foundation for all life.
In the future, Germany will have to learn to get by with less water. For other parts of our planet, that day has already come, or worse.
It's actually really sad because in many parts of the world Coca-Cola does succeed and then people can only buy water in the supermarket at high prices. In Mexico, for example.
San Cristobal in southern Mexico has a large Coca-Cola plant. Well protected behind high fences and barbed wire. Mexican health authorities say more of the beverage is consumed here than anywhere else in Mexico. 2 liters per person per day on average. As long as Coca-Cola has enough water, business is good. For the people of San Cristobal, however, life is very different. They are left high and dry.
Look, here is the faucet, and there is no water at all. Not a drop. Absolutely no water. It's like this every day. The whole city, everywhere in the city. People are complaining in every neighborhood because they have no water.
Eustacio Juan Hernandez Vasquez also has no water. Vasquez is a gardener. Without water, he has no work.
Incluso ahorita ya no tenemos agua.
We have no water and won't have any until Monday. Then we will have water from the tap again. Till then, we have to make do with the water for food. It's unbelievable. And on top of that, the dry season is just beginning.
Take care of water today because it is important for tomorrow, this sign tells us.
Coca-Cola takes water out 24 hours a day for soft drinks and water that they then sell in bottles everywhere to other cities, countries and states. They have water. And why? Because they slurp it all up. And the people of San Cristobal don't have access to their own water.
They have to buy water in plastic bottles. Ciel, the name of the brand, translates as sky, but it's a product of Coca-Cola bottled from the ground.
The water authority here is called ConAgua. It issues permits, and Coca-Cola has a license for many years, because we had a president who used to work for Coca-Cola, Vicente Fox. He made sure they got all the licenses.
Exclusive rights to the high-quality water of a once water-rich region. No doubt an extremely lucrative business.
La Coca-Cola extrae diario más de 1.200.000 litros de agua.
Coca-Cola pumps more than 1.2 million liters of water every day. They have 3 wells from which they produce all their products. They distribute and sell the water from San Cristobal, while the surrounding neighborhoods don't have enough water.
How quickly is the water supply changing in the region? How long will the reserves last? NASA's GRACE mission can provide information about developments in San Cristobal. The region has been losing water since 2011, 60% faster than the rest of Central America on average. The data cannot determine Coca-Cola's role in the disappearance or if it has one. We asked Coca-Cola for a comment, and local residents install water tanks, as well as rainwater and other collection devices. The people, who have hardly any water left, want change.
We want the Coca-Cola company out of here, to leave.
People are rebelling against the powerful industry's huge thirst for water. It's David versus Goliath.
Yes, that is what we want. But you know what it's like to fight a monster. The monster is huge. It's a war for water, because there will be no more water.
Southern Mexico was once the country's most water-rich region, and will eventually lose its water reserves. Just a few hours' flight to the north lies Phoenix. This city of over 1 million people in the southwest U.S. is as dry as dust. A rapidly growing metropolis in the middle of the desert. The economy is booming, and microchip manufacturer Intel is building a gigantic plant here. It is the largest private sector investment in Arizona's history, $20 billion.
Really unbelievable. I mean, when we drive around here and we just see the scope of this place, it just stretches and stretches and stretches. And it's hard to see where one plant ends and the other plant begins. And this water facility is about the size of a facility that you'd see for a small city.
Microchip production requires a huge amount of ultra-pure water, but Intel has been expanding in Phoenix for more than 25 years anyway. Why invest in the middle of the desert?
We are here in the middle of the desert. It is warm. There's no question about it. So why build in the desert? We take many factors into consideration when we decide where to build. Favorable business environment is certainly one of those. A strong workforce, educated workforce is another. But thinking ahead about Infrastructure, including utilities, water, is very critical to us as well. And when we evaluated Arizona 25 plus years ago, we saw that the state had done that and was looking ahead and preparing for that drought in the future.
Every drop counts. That's why Intel is investing in this state-of-the-art water treatment plant to further purify the water the city supplies.
25 plus years ago, what we decided to do was to fund the building of a facility that I believe you'll see later called the OBRF. In fact, it's here over my shoulder. You can see it in the background. And what that facility does, that partnership with the city, is it allows us to send some of our water from Intel to the city where that water is cleaned to reuse standards. And then it can be reused for irrigation, other applications, parks, golf courses, et cetera, in the city. And it can also be cleaned and put back into the aquifer, which the city has done for many years over the past couple of decades as well.
This water treatment plant is located next to the company's waterworks. Intel financed it together with the city to recycle some of the wastewater from production.
Being that we are in Arizona, we are in the middle of a drought. We have been for many years. There's just not a whole abundance of water to get. So water conservation is really important for the state of Arizona, for Intel. It's plants like this are going to be needed in the future to basically squeeze every last drop out of that water.
A Herculean task. But will it be enough?
It's not looking good. We just need to get more rain. We need to fill those reservoirs up, right, to ensure that we have water in the future.
Why is the industry investing in one of the driest places in the world? Scientist and journalist Abram Lustgarten is also curious. Why are corporations moving to regions that have hardly any water?
In the United States especially, there are still these weird, perverse incentives that do keep the flow of population going in the wrong direction in a way. You know, the city of Phoenix is the fastest growing city in the United States. We've made water cheap in the Southwest. If you own a house in the city of Phoenix, you don't pay very much for your water. You even pay less than somebody in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania pays for their water, despite the fact that your water in Arizona is incredibly scarce. But those price signals, that's the market.
Lake Mead is not the only reservoir this is happening to. 2/3 of the Colorado River Basin storage system is empty right now. Even worse, the BOR predicts that Lake Mead could reach dead pool by 2026, which is exactly why they gave the Colorado River Basin states until August 15th to come up with a plan to reduce their consumption by 25%. Even worse, the BOR says the longer we take to make these cuts, the larger the cuts will have to be to stabilize the system. And they said even if stream flow is above 95% of average next year, we'll still have to make 600,000 acre-feet of cuts. If the stream flow next year is less than 50% of average, we will have to make 4.2 million acre-feet of cuts. And the latter scenario seems the most plausible because the Colorado River Compact allocated 16.5 million acre-feet, but climate modeling projects that we'll have 11 to 13.5 million acre-feet in the basin. This crisis is a direct result of our absolutely unhinged water management practices in the West. But climate change might make this entirely unsustainable system just collapse.
The preacher man says it's the end of time, and the Mississippi River, she's a going dry. The interest is up and the stock market's down, and you only get mugged if you go downtown.
In my whole life of living in Mississippi, I ain't never seen the levee this low. We have never saw that. We ain't know we had a beach. I'm telling you, we ain't never saw this water this low ever in Mississippi. Yeah, we ain't never saw this. We ain't never saw this. Look, we ain't never seen this. We ain't walked on sand out here like this, y'all. Man, look how low this water is right here. Look at the big fish. Right there. Right there. I'm finna show it to you. 2 of them. Right here. It's so low. I ain't never saw this low, man. Never in my life. No, I don't think them cats. Them look like Carp. Folks still breathing, eh? Them carp.
I got a shotgun, a rifle, and a four-wheel drive, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. I can fly with.
All right, 6 p.m. update. Palm Harbor, Florida, Gulf of Mexico. Okay, 12 hours now. There is no water in the Gulf of Mexico. This is something I've never seen. I sure hope it doesn't come back all at once, but I tell you, this is bizarre. Millions and millions of gallons of water have just disappeared. They're probably all sitting in somebody's town down south, but I can tell you, I could literally walk half a mile out there. I won't do it because it's probably pretty soft, and not even see water. Anyways, usually, as I said, water is up to the line on the wall and it goes to Texas. I can probably walk halfway to Texas. So I just hope it doesn't come back all at once. That could be a little scary. I mean, usually, you can't see all the way, but it's miles and miles of just grass, seagrass. I'll update again, but there are billions of gallons of water that need to come back. Stay safe, everybody. Update probably tomorrow.
Imagine if our water were to run out.
This is the realization of what happens to a community that runs out of water. There's no way to survive. Is this our future?
Imagine our wells drying up.
I'm afraid that we may eventually run out of water here.
And what if the fight for water turns into war?
Some parts of the world are going to become unlivable because of rising heat.
Here, the water crisis is a tale of never-ending misery.
Water is disappearing everywhere.
That suggests a huge global migration.
Societies need water to survive. International conflicts will become inevitable.
From a global perspective, humankind's approach to water is potentially lethal.
Once politics is dictated by the fight for water, then God help us.
We're used to having plenty of water. But that's changing thanks to the climate crisis. With water scarcity becoming an increasingly important issue, this series asks, what happens if we have no more water? Avila Beach is a picturesque resort town in Southern California, with an old wooden pier stretching far out into the local bay. But appearances can be deceptive. As we're told by Pete Kelly from the local community services, this Pacific Coast paradise is facing disaster.
It's a beautiful spot for sure, but it's also very dry now compared to what it usually is. I mean, after a wonderful rainy spring, it's so green around here you wouldn't believe it. It looks like Ireland, but not this year. It's semi-desert.
After years of drought, the land just behind the coast around Avila Beach is now eerily barren.
We will be out of water, as will most places in California. And it's going to get worse. I would just say pray for rain.
300 kilometers up the coast in comparatively water-rich Northern California lies the town of Mendocino.
I mean, I grew up here. This is home. I actually was a firefighter and worked in EMS for about 15 years. So I'm not new to emergencies, I'm not new to protecting the community, but I am relatively new to water and wastewater management. And starting this career in the middle of one of the worst droughts in the last 100 years has presented quite a few challenges.
Mendocino's location, perched on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, has made it a popular tourist destination. But these days, fresh water has to be trucked in. The ongoing drought is threatening to sink its key industry.
We've been dependent on trucked water since at least January. And the real problem happened July 18th when Fort Bragg shut off the tap, because every month we're more and more dependent on the trucked water. Everyone declared an emergency, but all of a sudden there was no more water available. That's when panic set in.
An entire county now dependent on water brought in by trucks and subject to a drought state of emergency declared by the state governor in 2021. A nightmare for locals.
When shop owners started calling me and restaurants saying, we have to lock our bathrooms to the public because we don't have enough water, this is a health and safety crisis. It's a human emergency. You know, you can't have people defecating on the street.
All over town, restaurant and cafe owners have had to set up portable toilets.
Water makes the world go around, and in a first world country, the fact that we don't have, continual access to it is difficult.
And every day brings fresh uncertainty.
We don't know. We go day by day. We have the risk to sometimes we can open the door because we don't have the water to run our business.
Massimo Milani is originally from Italy. Like nearly all restaurant owners, his business cannot function without water. In his case, it's provided by the authorities, but it's rationed.
The county gave us water, so this was the water we use for the customer. And so we give to each customer 1 little barrel. And obviously, if they ask for more water, we give more water.
Water never used to be in short supply here. So what is it like now, being left high and dry?
It's an embarrassment. It's scary, and it makes you really reevaluate your life, where you live, and it makes you think about things differently. You know, it's one thing not to have Wi-Fi everywhere you go. It's a whole nother thing if you've got no water to drink.
And 10,000 kilometers east of California, in Germany, water shortages have become a problem as well.
2020 war das zweitwärmste Jahr in Deutschland.
Wochenlang nichts als Sonne, hohe Temperaturen und kein Regen.
Erneut rekordverdächtige Temperaturen.
In some parts of Germany, searing temperatures have repeatedly strained supplies of drinking water, as here in the town of Lauenau.
This is the local water authority. Due to high levels of consumption, the local water supply levels remain critical. The supply of drinking water could occasionally be interrupted. The fire department will soon be
In extreme situations like this, the local fire department provides people with water until the local supply can be restored. But why didn't those responsible anticipate the shortfall? An expert explains how a resource once taken for granted became a scarce commodity without anyone really noticing.
Wasser ist absolut ein gefährdetes Gut, und zwar in unterschiedlichster Art und Weise.
Water is very much a vulnerable resource, in various ways. But in Germany, the days when we had abundant water supplies are gone too. And in some parts of northern Bavaria, there is a dire shortage of water.
Richtige Wasserarmutsgebiete sind.
Here in Upper Franconia, one of the areas hardest hit by water scarcity in Germany, regional water authorities monitor the groundwater level. Klaus Atzet is joined by Simone Preis from the Nuremberg Water Authority to conduct checks at a critical measuring site. Readings taken at key points like this will, they hope, reveal any hidden developments underground. As the probe is lowered into the ground, a light indicates when it hits groundwater. Simone Preis records the latest data.
Wieder 4 Zentimeter weniger als letzte Woche.
4 centimeters lower than last week and 1.5 meters lower than last year. We've been measuring this site since 2012. Since then, the groundwater level has dropped by 13 meters.
Wir beobachten natürlich auch an anderen Messstellen.
We also monitor other measuring sites in Bavaria, and we've seen that groundwater levels are dropping and are taking longer to be replenished, if they're recovering at all.
But what if groundwater levels continue to sink at this rate?
Wir können natürlich nicht abschätzen.
There's no way we can make any medium or long-term predictions. If these lengthy dry periods persist, the groundwater level will continue to drop. As a large proportion of the drinking water in Bavaria comes from groundwater, then obviously there'll be less water available.
Und damit steht natürlich auch weniger zur Verfügung.
And one result of the drop in groundwater levels is already visible at this well. It's supplied 200 households with drinking water for over a century.
This is the well house.
Extending and renovating the well would be costly. Michael Belau from the Regional Environmental Agency monitors the facility.
In 2020, we recorded record lows for groundwater levels. And you notice from the discharge that there's less water.
And with those levels...
Turning to the growing concern over water resources and the drought. Today, Vice President Kamala Harris announcing a plan to elevate clean water and safe water as a foreign policy priority, saying water is becoming increasingly scarce all over the country and the world.
And I remember how unsettling it was to imagine how our access to a resource so basic and essential as water, how that could become so uncertain that we could not take it for granted. It is a reality that more and more people in our nation are, however, experiencing and understanding this issue every day. As our planet warms and weather patterns change, extreme drought is becoming increasingly common. At this moment, about 90 million Americans are living under drought conditions.
She said under the plan, the U.S. would fully commit to helping provide access to safe water and sanitation across the world. The U.S. will share water data to help manage and preserve resources. It would also use its diplomatic resources to elevate water security as a priority internationally. Today's announcement marks the release of a report from the Biden administration's Drought Resilience Interagency Working Group. The group was created to address worsening drought conditions and water shortages.
Unexpected turns, I keep my snicks on tight. Head on collision, hope the seatbelt right up. Might be locked up tomorrow, but we free tonight. Spray in the car, I get a leash on like leash on tight. Only right, we know. And please don't judge us for the past week shows. Looking up there, no one sending me signs. Only this was a movie, I pressed the